9 of Adrian Gonzales Trial wrapped up on Friday, wrapping up the second week of this trial, and here's what happened. It's a great day for a great day. My name is Sydney Rushing. I'm a criminal defense attorney in the state of Michigan. Now let's talk about it. Morning started off by selecting an alternate juror because the other juror was unable to come back due to the family emergency. The parties also agreed to waive redirect and recross examination of the prior witness, Officer Coronado. Witness number 35, Cody Allen, was called to the stand. He's a Texas Ranger. He used a Leica scanner to document the scene, and it basically created this 3D model of the scene from the vehicle crash to the west building of the school. He discussed the model and that the points are all measurable points, and when the scanner reaches certain points, it creates this cloud. Cross-examination, he agreed that the Leica scans can give distant estimates, but they can't measure intangibles, such as the stress a person is under, what a person can or can't see, or how they perceive it. He was unable to do a Leica scan of the south part of the scene because it was congested with law enforcement vehicles, media, and command trailers. He was not asked to calculate any distances between shell casings. He was then excused from the stand. Witness number 36, Lieutenant Nick Hill, was then called to the stand. He's with the Texas Department of Public Safety's Homeland Security Division. He does investigative analysis for capital felony prosecutions, as well as investigations that have a large amount of information affiliated with them. When he arrived at the scene, he was tasked with taking pictures inside and outside the 4th grade building, identifying the victims, and carefully preparing the victims for transport to Bexar County Medical Examiner's Office. He went to the funeral home to retrieve the surveillance video. He found 5 metal projectile causing defects in room 102. He used an aerial map and laser light to map out where Gonzales and the Uvalde police officers arrived at the scene. They were able to determine how many times the monster discharged his weapon versus officers because they used different types of metal projectiles. 173 shots are attributed to the monster from Diaz Street and the school, and 35 were from officers. They were able to determine the times that the metal projectiles were discharged with a 2-second variable, and he believes that 6 were discharged prior to Gonzales arriving. 2 more were done after Gonzales parked his vehicle, with shots fired going over the radio at 11:32:09, and the monster entered the building at 11:32:59. He said that there were 117 discharges between room 111 and 112 before Gonzales entered the building. There was a break for the jury. After the break, they started discussing the 3D animation that Hill put together. This retraced the monster and the first few law enforcement officers' approximate steps up to and including the situation at the school. The video was played to the jury over the defense's objection, where the judge found it to be more probative than prejudicial. And then they went through great detail mapping out how they believed everything happened. Cross-examination got a little spicy. To synchronize everything, Hill said that he reviewed the timeline events up to approximately 11:45 a.m. He was asked if he interviewed Gilbert Limones, who was the first witness of the trial, and he said that he did not. He interviewed Cody Brizano, who was the co-worker of Limones. He said that he did not review Limones' interview, and after some questions from the defense, he rephrased and said that he didn't review it prior to trial, but he did earlier in the investigation. They discussed Limones using the word "at," and when he said that someone was discharging at the school, what that could be interpreted as. He was asked why some details of Limones' 911 call were not known details to law enforcement in real time, and he agreed that wearing black, discharging at the school, running towards the school was not dispatched to law enforcement in real time. That information was not shared. Hill was questioned why a law enforcement officer arrival to the school was not included in the timeline, and neither were other officer arrivals. When asked if the 3D model was his opinion, he said, "It's not my opinion. From a time perspective, it's based on the data I observed." He again was asked if he was making educated guesses, and he said that the animation is not his opinion and that he has no opinion. There was a lot of back and forth about this because it's pretty clear that this animation is definitely based off his opinion with the data that he received. And he wouldn't answer that question. He kept side-skirting it because, of course, the prosecution doesn't like the answer that he has to give. When asked about Vargas, Hill couldn't recall if he had been interviewed or not, and that his information would have been very important and directly affect the timeline. He believes the monster didn't discharge his pew-pew in the open area near his vehicle because there were no signs of spent shell casings. When asked if the monster hiding between 2 cars was on the animation, Hill said that he did walk between 2 cars, but he couldn't verify if he squatted down and hid. When it was brought up that 2 witnesses alleged that the monster couldn't be seen in the parking lot, Hill agreed that they said that, and this was not included in the animation. He confirmed that Gonzales was one of the officers who helped teachers and students escape by breaking classroom windows. He agreed that Gonzales drove towards the gunfire when he arrived at the school. When asked why the information from Melody Flores about being with Officer Gonzales wasn't on the timeline, Hill said that it was based on initial interviews. When asked whether Gonzales pacing outside the school would have been helpful for the timeline, Hill again tried not to answer, but then after being told to answer the question, he said it would be important for analyzing unaccounted time. He was also caught up when he gave Officer Coronado's radio call suggesting Gonzales knew when the monster entered the building, and then retracted it and said he didn't know who the officer was that gave that information. Then there was a lunch break for the jury. The prosecutor was probably very happy for that break. After lunch, when recross-examination continued, Hill was asked if Gonzales had the option to confront the monster when he drove by him, and Hill said not at that time, and then said it was possible that he was experiencing tunnel vision by focusing on Flores. Prosecutors then asked the judge to redirect LaHood back to his seat because they couldn't hear the witness because he was turned sideways. And this is a classic breakup that you want to do in the middle of a cross-examination that's heated and that is really hurting for you. It's definitely a technique, and they definitely implemented it. Then they discussed Juan Saucedo, who responded to the situation, had a long pew-pew, and saw the monster. Hill said that Saucedo had an opportunity and did not take the shot. Then there was some spicy back and forth between the defense and the prosecutors. Hill confirmed that he didn't know about Flores interacting with Gonzales, and that's the reason it was not factored into the larger timeline. Hill was asked how many shots were fired in the school by the time Saucedo, Coronado, and Mendoza were at the corner with a line of sight. He said that at that point there had been none. But they're not the ones that are on trial here. Hill was also asked why Gonzales' radio call for cover was not on the timeline. Again, he confirmed that Saucedo asked for permission to take out the threat and that they didn't act, and Hill responded that they didn't take action at that particular moment and said that those officers had more time to act than Gonzales did. There was lots of back and forth about these officers, and Hill clearly not wanting to answer it because it hurts. And I mean, this part hurts the prosecutor's case. LaHood was getting pretty fired up about the non-answers. Hill then confirmed that the monster was in the general area of the teacher's parking lot, but was not right at Gonzales' front doorstep. Court then released for the day, and that ended day 9 and week 2 of Adrian Gonzales' case. There will not be any testimony that was taken on Monday due to the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, so the court will resume on Tuesday. Thank you for being here, and thank you for following along. And here's the question of the day. Do you think that Lieutenant Hill's testimony absolutely wrecked the prosecutor's case and his attitude about not wanting to answer very obvious and softball questions? Let me know in the comments.